In college algebra, we spent some time on slope again, but this time we started talking about parallel and perpendicular lines and then applied it to a few word problems. So if you have parallel lines, the slopes are always the same or equal. And if you have perpendicular lines, you have negative reciprocal slopes. Some people struggle with the negative reciprocal. So for example, if I have a slope of 3/5, the negative reciprocal is negative 5/3. If I have a slope of negative 2/7, the negative reciprocal slope is positive 7/2. If I have a 7 for a slope, I have to turn it into a fraction. So picture a 1 underneath it, flip it, and we get 1/7 and make it negative. Likewise, if I have a 1 in the numerator, my negative reciprocal becomes negative 2. All right. We need to write an equation on number 1 of a line going through negative 3, 2, and parallel to the equation listed. So first thing, find the slope. So we have an equation in slope-intercept form. We know right away that m equals 2. And if the lines are parallel, maybe make that obvious in your notes right there, parallel lines, then don't change the slope. The slope stays as 2. Since parallel, the slope does not change. And I have my coordinate right there, negative 3, 2. That's x1, y1. And they tell me to put it in point slope form. We learned that last week. That is this form. So let's substitute into that formula. We have y minus 2 equals 2x plus 3. And that is point slope form. But they also tell us to put it into slope-intercept form. So I need to solve that equation I just circled for y. So I'm going to distribute the 2. And then I need to add that negative 2 to the other side. And then we're done. Here is slope-intercept form. Hopefully it's review. If not, there you go. All right, let's try number 2. On number 2, we have a perpendicular equation, which means I need to find slope, then flip it. So first, solve this thing so that we can see the slope. So I'll do that right here. I need to get the y all by itself. So that means I need to move that x over, and I need to move that negative 8 over. And then lastly, let's divide by 4. And we have, I would rewrite that fraction in the middle as negative 1/4 x, and then plus 2. So I see a slope of negative 1/4. It's perpendicular, so we need to flip it and flip the sign. There is our new slope. All right, it says write an equation. It's kind of vague. Doesn't tell us point slope or slope-intercept form. I see a coordinate up there. I'm going to plug it into point slope. So once again, here's our formula. And we have y minus 4 equals 4, x plus 6. And all at once is an equation, and that looks like an equation to me, so I would just stop right there. At the bottom of the page, we start moving into word problem language, and that's rate of change. So the formula at the very bottom is actually still the same slope formula. That is y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. So when they use that fancy notation with f of x, remember the f of x just symbolizes y. So that is still the same slope formula. It's just they're calling it rate of change now. All right. So on number 3, we have this word problem about people in the U.S. And we have 2 line segments. We have one for women, one for men. And it says that we need to find the slope of this line segment for women, for the green line that you see there. They gave us 2 coordinates to use. We could pick any coordinates we want. But since they've already made dots and written out the coordinates, let's find them. So we're going to say M is y2 minus y1 over 2010 minus 1995. And we get pretty nice numbers. We get 3 over 15, which is 1/5. Now they want us to describe it, so we got to use context that you see typed in the graph. And remember, this is change in y over change in x. So let's change the y to number living alone for women and x to years. So I'm going to say there is a 1 million increase in women. I phrased that kind of funny, but I think you get the right idea. In the U.S. living alone. So that 1 that I wrote down right there is that 1 right there in green. So those 2 green ones match. Now I need to say for every whatever the denominator is. For every 5 years. And that's the denominator. All right, let's try one more. For A, this time it wants us to find the rate of change, the slope for a parabola. If you type x squared in, you get something like this. And you can still find the slope because they give us 2 spots that they're referencing. So they're talking about this spot at 0. You know, if I was to draw my xy coordinate plane, it would look something like this. So at that spot at 0, 0, and this spot at 1, I need to find the slope between just those 2 points. So that's a straight line. I ignore the curving line and I just find the slope between the points. So what you do is you plug into the function. This one's pretty easy, but if it's ever a more complicated function, maybe these steps will be needed. Plug into the function to get 2y's. So f of 1, or sorry, 0 is 0 squared, which is 0, and that is y1. F of 1, I'm plugging in x2 right now, is 1, and that is y2. So now I jump over to my slope formula, and I do what I did last week. I subtract the y's and subtract the x's, and we just end up with 1. That was all we did in class. We'll finish this out tomorrow. See y'all later.